in the live stream world, and thank you very much for everybody coming today. I have the honor of being sort of MC of the events. Very proud to be part of the DW 50th anniversary celebrations. We've got almost a week's worth of parties, concerts, and as part of this, we want to introduce you to the real guys, the heroes behind the Make Our Drums. So we're a custom drum company. Yesterday we had Sean and Jose talking about making shells. Today we're going to be talking about the outer veneer, the finishes of the drums. We have for you Louie Garcia, who is a master artisan artist. He has worked with many of the greatest drummers on the planet. He's been at DW for a very, very long time, highly respected. I'd like to introduce you to Louie Garcia.
It's good to see you. I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me? Can I bring this in? Can you hear me now? All right. Oh, there you go. Right on. Well, I wanted, before we get, I got a lot of familiar faces. Before we get started, I wanted to get my notes here. I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about my whole, actually, let me just trying to figure this out. My phone doesn't want to do its thing. I wanted to introduce, to me, a lot of people think that, well, they don't think, but it seems like I'm the only guy behind all these drums and all these paint jobs. But it's not just me that's painting or doing graphics or doing things like that. I have, we're part of a family. And behind that family is a crew. And we have a paint crew, and we have a buffing crew, and we have a primer crew. Prepping crew, as Sean was talking about yesterday. And these are the boys that, I'm not going to say stand behind me, because we're more of a family. They stand next to me. And it's not my right-hand guy or my left-hand guy. We all belong together. And we work together, and that's who we are. In the paint department, I have Beto, who is a painter that helps me a great deal as well. Beto Alatorre. We have Cousin Ray Ray. I don't know if you've been on our tours, but Cousin Ray Ray is the one that helps me with graphics and applications. And he's also a floater. He does a little bit of everything. And the baby of the bunch, his name is Edward, and Edward, I gave him the nickname Yayo Pelayo. He's been with us a year, and within that year, he's the one that does all the clearing, all the gloss that you see, and inside the snares, outside the snares, he's the one that does that. Also, we also have our buffing crew, which is Alex Alatorre and Edgar Pelayo, who is Yayo's brother. And then Alex is cousins with our painter Beto. And then we have our primer gentleman, who is Don Abel Hernandez, and goes on beyond there. It goes on to our prepping crew, a great deal, our primer sanding crew, Dave Signs and Nick, and I mean, I can stay here all day with naming everyone that's behind these drums, you know. But yeah, that's who my guys are, and I wanted to give them a shout out. But yeah, I want to welcome you guys. Thank you for coming out and celebrating 50 years with us. Everyone out there streaming, I see you guys too. So thank you for tuning in. Other than that, they asked me to talk a little bit about myself, and I kind of don't like doing that, but I guess I'm gonna. It's on the agenda, so I guess I have to do that. Right. But October 28th of this year, I celebrated 30 years with DW. So been painting, yeah, thank you. Been painting and being with the company 30 years is something that is very special to me. I told, at one point, in the earlier part of my career with DW, I had told John Good that the day that I wake up and I don't want to paint drums or don't have the passion to paint drums, that's the day that I would turn in my 2 weeks notice. And so far, even though we're get up a little tired, a little older, body's kind of trying to give out a little bit, but the passion to paint drums is still there. And I appreciate it from all of you and all our customers out there, as well as yourselves, that without any of you, we wouldn't be here celebrating 50 years. So very much appreciate that. But anyway, the way I got started painting drums, it's kind of a long story, but I know I only have an hour, so I got to kind of cut it short. But I had always wanted to paint. Always had that urge to paint. When I was little, my grandma would buy me little paints, and I'd be playing outside with my Hot Wheels, and I'd dig out these little crevices in the ground, and this would be a body shop. And so I'd paint it with brushes, you know, and so it started there, and it started painting my own bikes. And then it started painting the neighborhood kids' bikes. And then as I grew older, I figured that's what I wanted to do. I always wanted to paint. And so wherever I went, I always had that passion of painting. And so when I was in high school, there was a program, and I don't know, maybe I'm too old already for you guys to understand, but there used to be a program, it was called ROP. And ROP was a regional occupational program. And so when I saw that they had auto body and paint, so I signed up for that because that's what I wanted to do. So when I went to school in ROP, I couldn't take painting until you pass a whole semester of auto body. So I did that and then signed up for painting. And the thing is that I got it and I understood it. And what happened was that a lot of my, I'm going to say, classmates from different schools, that's what the ROP program was for, I'd end up helping a lot of them and I wouldn't complete my jobs. And so my teacher knew that, but he knew that I had the passion, so he kicked me out. And he kicked me out to go work. And so he got me a job in a body shop, and I loved it. And that's how I ended up learning how to do auto painting and auto body and things of that sort. And I hopped from body shop to body shop because they would all hang out. They would come hang out where I was working, and I would stay there late because I'm 17 years old. You know, you got energy. You can stay up for 4 days, and it wouldn't even bug you. You know, nowadays, you know, 7 o'clock comes and you're already ready for bed. But anyway, so that's the way I got started into painting. And so years went by, and that's what I was doing. I started doing auto body in my own house, and just had a way to open up an auto accessory store, and I started doing that with, you know, custom installs and stuff like that. And so when I quit that, I always ended up doing the same thing: painting, doing my cars at home, auto body paint. And so I ended up getting a job at what back then, and it's still there now, not there, but they moved. It was called Everson Jennings. I don't know if you know what Everson Jennings is. Everson Jennings makes wheelchairs. So I got the job there, and me being a big guy, I don't know if you noticed, but I'm a big guy. I don't know if you could see me behind these things, but I ended up working there, and they had a powder coat department. And so my boss, who was also a big guy, I worked night shift. And so he bet the day shift manager that I wouldn't last 30 days there, you know. And I didn't know this until like a couple years later, but they opened up a patient care department. They gave it to me. So within that month and a half, I became a blue collar. And they started having issues and problems with powder coating. And so I never done powder coating, but I figured that paint is paint. And if there's something wrong with it, that means there's contamination. And so I got involved a little bit, and through my friend who was working there, at that time we became friends. And we figured out the washes, how much electricity to put through it, and it started working out. So I started doing that. And that's where I met my wife, Gigi, who's here, right here. 33 years we've been married. Okay, so you guys have your wives, right? Okay. Gigi didn't want me to paint. So what happened was, and before I get to that, I should not get to this part yet, but we've been working together. She works for DW, and she's going to celebrate her 28 years in November, this month. On the 22nd. So imagine, you that are married, I get a lot of this. How is it that you can work with your wife all day long? You wake up together, you get ready together, you drive together, we drive to the same place, we work there, we get off work, we come home, and you're all together all day long. But when she gets sick or I get sick, I miss her, because where we go by and, you know, we say hi to each other. But she didn't want me to paint. So what happened was, when we got laid off from Everson Jennings, it was, they invited us to go with them to St. Louis, Missouri. That's where they moved. And so I was taking care of my mom at that time, and so I told her I can't go. So we ended up getting married back then, and she didn't, to make the ends meet, I was end up painting cars and stuff like that in my backyard. So I would do that. And the thing is that I was looking for a job for 2 years, but they'd look at me as a big guy and they say, oh, he's lazy, or, oh, you know what, no, we're not hiring right now. So for 2 years I looked for a job. In between there, I was painting. So my wife for Christmas bought me a little RC truck. And I got so into that RC truck that I bought a regular professional one. And you'll see where I'm going with this. So also to make ends meet, when I started racing, I was painting Lexan bodies, the little bodies that go on the trucks for people. Because I would paint mine, and so everybody wanted one of my paint jobs on there. So I would do that. The only thing is I wouldn't charge. So for that particular thing, because I just love painting. So there was a gentleman there that wanted to get into racing, and we started becoming friends, and we were probably a month and a half in, because we would race on Sundays and Wednesdays. It was dirt oval. And he wanted to get into racing, and then one thing led to another. Yeah, I'm looking for a job, and I can't find one, and nobody wants to hire me. And he goes, hey, you should come work with us, man. Come work with me. And I say, yeah, what do you do? And he goes, oh, I buff drums. And I said, oh, really? And then right away, just like all people that I meet and I tell them what I do, they think that I paint big oil drums, not percussion drums. And so I thought that, so why would you buff drums? And so he says, no, they're percussion drums. And I said, well, what do you want me to do? And he said, I want you to, I need a color sander. Our color sander quit. Oh, okay, I can do that. Because that's what I did. I color sanded cars and buffed them out. So I ended up going over there, sight unseen, I got hired. And I remember, I think it was like 2 months later that I ended up filling out an application, and but that's the way I got started. And when the first day that I got there, we were using a really hard top coat. Now, mind you, my wife doesn't want me to paint, and I didn't tell them that I had no experience. I don't know how to paint. I don't know how to do anything. Just tell me what to do, and I'll try. I'll do my best. And so the first day that I got there, they told me, oh, you're only going to be able to do like maybe 2 or 3 drums because you've never done it before. Okay. And so they used to sand a certain way, and to me, you don't want to be a know-it-all. Never want to be a know-it-all. Okay? You respect the way it's done, and I tried it, and I really couldn't get it. And I asked, I go, can I just turn the drum around and just sand this way? And he goes, yeah, you can sand whatever you want to do. Just don't put orbital. Okay. So I did that, and that very first day I did 21 drums. But my buffer guys, the guys that I would sand for, they said that they hadn't seen sanding like that before, and it was much easier for them to get out. So at that point, I had run out of drums, so the painter had to paint more drums. Because usually they were only getting out 2, 3 drums, and Don or John, that's what we would do, 3, 4, 5, 6 drums a day. And so that's the way I ended up. Painting at DW. But the thing was, the buffer and I started in Newberry Park, and we moved 2 months later. We had moved. I don't remember. Yeah, 2 months later we had moved to Oxnard, and so that's where I was. And the buffer had a friend that he got a new buffer. And the buffer that came in says, hey, and so he was a friend of mine from back in the painting days. And so he says, hey, what are you doing here? You're not painting cars anymore? You're not doing this anymore? And no, I'm not doing any of that stuff. And so our other buffer who got me the job overheard, hey, you paint? No, I don't paint, I don't do any of that stuff. And so my friend, yeah, you do. You should see some of his paint jobs, And so the painter told me, "Oh, you do body work too then? I heard you do body work." No, I don't. And he said, "You need to do the body work on my fenders or I'm going to fire you." Like, "Oh, no way." And so I did the body work on the fenders. Took them home, did the body work on the fenders. Took them back, and then he says, "Hey, so if you know how to do body work, you know how to shoot primer." No, I don't want to shoot primer. Just let me keep sanding and prepping and all that stuff for you. And he got me in the same thing. "I need you to come primer, or if not, I'm going to let you go." And so that's how I ended up getting into painting more and more and more drums. And next thing I know, I'm doing all the primering. I'm doing all the clearing inside. I'm clearing all the outside of the drums. And then I started painting drums on the outside. And so this gentleman, I mean, with all, I don't want to say due respect, but he'd kind of leave the building and have me doing all these drums. So that's the way I met John Good. I was already there. I got hired October 28th. This was already June. And so John came in, and I was prepping this kit to paint, and he says, "Hey, this kit has to go tomorrow. It belongs to an endorsee," and I didn't know what an endorsee was. I said, "Oh, yeah, it's a Regal Blue. I was going to paint it," and he got really upset. "What? Don't you ever touch my drums. Who do you think you are painting drums? You don't know how to paint drums. I don't even know who you are." And I said, "Okay, so I won't paint it." So I went back and I started primer sanding and sanding some more drums, and he took off. And probably about half hour later, he came back and he says, "Hey, I can't find so-and-so." And I said, "Oh, I don't know." And he says, "So you've painted drums before?" And I said, "Yeah." And he says, "Where?" And I go, "Here." He goes, "What do you mean here?" And I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "What have you painted?" And I go, "Can you follow me?" And we went to assembly. And we got to assembly, and I said, "I painted that kit, that kit, that kit, that kit, that kit." And he's like, "You're kidding me." And I go, "No, I've been painting." And so before he said anything, he goes, "All right, go to the booth. I'll be right there right now." Okay. So he came back, and he came back with 2 chairs, him and Don. Okay, and he says, "Paint that kit." I painted that kit. To me, I didn't know who Don was. I didn't even know who John was. You know what I mean? I painted the kit, and this was the 18th of June. I went to work June 19th, and the painter comes in. He says, "You know what? I just got fired." And I said, "What do you mean you got fired?" And he goes, "Yeah, I just got fired, man. You know what? You ain't going to be nothing in this business. You don't know what you're doing. You're never gonna succeed in here or anything." He was really upset. And then so John comes in, and he tells me that they just fired the old painter. And I told John, "You better go get him, because I don't want to paint." And so, no, you're going to paint. And then probably about 20 minutes later, me trying to convince John that I'm not going to paint, comes in the convincer. That's Don Lombardi. All right, and you know how him and John they say they can sell you a dead parrot. You know what I mean? And so he starts telling me, and "No, I need you." And Mr. Lombardi, he kept telling me, and so I told him, I said, "You know what? If you're not going to go get him, I will at least commit that I'll paint until you get another painter." And so they tried. There was a lot of people, but a lot of the auto body industry people were coming. They were making a lot of money, and so they would come and they would go, and I'd still keep painting. And my wife would tell me, "Why do you smell like paint?" you know, and I'd get home and my shoes are all, you know, sticky from primering, clearing, painting, just all of that. And I said, you know what, I'm going to paint for this company, but just for a little while until they get another painter. You know, no, I told you that it's bad for you, and, you know, and I know, I understand. And you know that old saying, happy wife is a happy life. When they're not happy, it's not a good life. And so it just so happened that way. And so my wife was working in the hospital, and she was doing night shift, and I would do day shift because we were both helping my sister raise her little newborn. And I wanted her to keep going to school, so I would take care of him at night, and she would take care of him in the day. So what happened was that she ended up doing double shifts all the time, and that's the industry of being in the hospital. They always need you. And so I never get to see her. You know, it's like when I was getting up, she was barely coming in, and I'd end up coming to work, and when I'd get to work, she was already gone. So the way I fixed the not able to paint thing was I got her a job with me. And I said, it's not about the money. It's about the time that we can start spending time together, because we don't even see each other. And so that's the way I fixed the painting thing, is that I'd paint them and she'd put them together, you know, and she started in petals and worked her way up, and now she's in assembly. So that's really my story of how I became painting. But still, you know, if you see that the movie that we made, the Resonance movie, I still say, well, I've been here, at that time it was 26 years or something like that, and I'm still waiting for a painter. When I was 30 years, I'm still waiting for a painter to come in. But that's my story of how I became the painter of DW. And so when I was doing that, I didn't understand what endorsers were. Okay, I'd get people come in, and it would be like a regular. To me, it was just a person. What is it? What color do you want? You know, and this color. Okay, not knowing that I'm talking to Tony Williams. You know, not knowing that I'm talking to Neil Peart back then when we first did the vapor trails, the red sparkle. Oh, you want red sparkle? Okay, got it. Go and start working. So I didn't understand it until I met Dave Abrazi. You guys all know Dave Abrazi, I'm hoping. He was the drummer for Pearl Jam. So he came in, and when I was introduced to him, they had some songs that I liked, but I never. When you listen to music, that I'm not a drummer, when you listen to music, you know who the groups are, but you don't know who the members of the groups are. You don't know the guitarist, you don't know the drummer, the pianist, you just know Journey or Pearl Jam or Rush, or you just know the band, but you don't know the players. And so when he introduced himself and who he was, so down to earth, that it made me feel like we knew each other. And so that infamous white kit that he wanted, it's what I painted for him, and I painted the little Pearl Jam figure on the snare. That was my first graphic on drums, that little Pearl Jam logo there that he had. But those kinds of things is that he turned me on to who is behind the music, you know, the drummers and the guitarist and all of that. And I started meeting all these people, and they would introduce themselves more as hi, I'm Mick Fleetwood, you know, and then find out it's from Fleetwood Mac. And those kinds of things, they made me like, wow, this is pretty incredible. The people that we work for, you know, and who we paint for, little known customers that we, no social media, no, we were still carrying beepers back then. We had no social medias or anything of that. So they'd come in and started meeting, all these people that we were painting for, and it was really an eye-opening experience with Mr. Aberzi, and I always tell him, because he just wrote to me the other day, and yeah, I mean, he was my first, that really opened up my eyes to what an endorsee was and what DW meant to them and what they meant to DW. And then all of a sudden I'm starting to really pay attention in this is 92, 93, where all of a sudden we start seeing the logo a little bit more on music videos and MTV, and whoa, and it was just more exciting, that I painted that, no way, and I was starstruck, it was an incredible feeling, to say, wow, look at that, I painted that, and from there it just grew and grew and grew. And now with social media and working on different drum sets, iconic drum sets, to me every drum is iconic because you're the owner of it. It's iconic to you, and that's what you do. And I forgot naming Pastor Jacobo. He's my master stainer. I just remembered right now. I want to shout him out. But my favorite paint jobs for me is I always get asked, what's your favorite paint job? And to me, it's every single paint job I love doing, But the one that put me on the map is the, Mr. Peart's time machine, his R30, which I ended up doing 30 of those. You guys remember we did 30, and then we had to do another. I think Guitar Center or something like that had us do 30 more drums, replicas. And I'll be honest with you, Mr. Peart's kit was a guinea pig, because by the time I did the first or second, I was flawless with those. So with him, I could always, you're your worst critic. So when I look at things that I paint, I would say, oh no, there's a little spot, that nobody will ever notice. But to me, I notice it and it hurts me. And so painting for, doing the Mr. Peart's whole ensemble, from the Snakes and Arrows, now here's a little story where you might not think it, but the Snakes and Arrows, when Mr. Peart came in for the Snakes and Arrows, he had me do a few drums. Now the Snakes and Arrows, if you look at the Snakes and Arrows, you got the snake and the arrow in the center. Well, the original artwork was a snake. Well, actually, was the snake, and there was an arrow on this side. So when we started doing graphics, we did it the way the album cover artwork was. And it was supposed to be on each panel, it was a snake and an arrow, a snake and an arrow, a snake, and I went all the way around. And then he looked at it and, well, we did what you wanted. No, I'm not getting that. And so I had a little panel, and I had painted it. I had painted the snake, and I put the arrow in the center. And then he goes, do you want to try maybe something like this? And he looks at it, and he goes, oh, what is that? And I go, it's just a snake and your logo. It's your snake. I just put the snake in the center. I had no other place to put it. And so he says, I love it. Let's do a sample. So I did a sample, freaked out over it. He loved it, had the artwork changed. So with that kit, see, every little kit that we've done, and even customer kits, they all have their story. Everyone has a story. I don't see how our customers struggle to come up with a certain amount to buy their drums or anything. You know what I mean? So everyone every drum is done with love and respect, because we know that this drum's not cheap. And so we want to do the best we can for the customer so that he can get the best quality and best of anything that he can afford, or whatever it is that he wants. John Good, when I first got started, he told me, you know, because we started going to NAMM, and then in 93, 94, all of a sudden we started winning awards, like a lot of awards at NAMM shows, at Modern Drummer magazine. We started getting best craftsmanship, best finish, best sound. So all of a sudden we start getting all these awards. And so there was a lot of, you know, our endorsees or customers would come in and they, oh, you guys make the best drums. And so with John, it was always, and he made me realize all the time what he said to me. He said, we're not number one because we say so. We're never number one. We're always going to try to thrive and always try to do better. We're always going to try to make better instruments. And so that was his vision, you know, as well as Don, Mr. Lombardi, and all of them. And so he said, we don't make the best drums, and we don't say that we make the best drums. If they tell us we make the best drums, then that's what we want. We want to be told that we make the best drums, but no way will we say, you know what, we make the best drums. And so that stuck with me. And so we just kept going, and then he had the idea of getting the shell shop and making our own shells, and it just blew up from there. And so those are you know, things that had happened. And with me, the best part of us making drums was getting to learn who our drummers are and who our endorsees were, who our customers were, but we didn't have any social media and stuff. But I ended up having the greatest time by painting for Mr. Peart, Mr. Tony Williams, Jack Bruno, Jim Keltner, Jim Chapin, Ginger Baker. A lot of these are no longer with us. And I had the opportunity to meet these people and paint for these people, you know, great drummers. Mr. Joe Murillo, Trishan Bowden, Tommy Lee, Nick Mason, JR. You guys saw them all last night. And all our endorsee roster is incredible. If I start naming all endorsees that we've painted for, we're going to run out of time here. But yeah, I'm very, very grateful for that. And like I said, one of my favorite paint jobs was a time machine, because Mr. Peart put me on the map with that. He put me in his album covers, in his books. He names me in the, when you go to a concert, you get your program, I'm in there. Like I said, the CD, he put me everywhere that he could put me, he put me, and I'm very grateful to him. And I miss him. I miss him dearly. I miss him dearly because I'm not a drummer. So when he would come and practice with us at Drum Channel, he'd be there for like 1 month just practicing by himself on the new kit that we had just finished painting. So I would be airbrushing, and he'd come behind me and grab me from my shoulders and always scare me. He loved scaring me, you know, and he'd sit down, and his hands were literally bloody from playing, you know, the discipline that man had, you know. But since I wasn't a drummer, I wouldn't ask him any drum questions. Our conversations were different, talking about life, family. You know, we talk about so many things, cars, we talk about it was a relationship that meant a whole lot to me, because maybe to him too, because he'd call me sometimes, or I wouldn't call endorsees, but if they call me, we're here to serve, not get served, you know. And so we would just talk, and I wasn't one that was asking him like anybody else a lot of people that wanted to talk to Neil Peart is, how did you cope with your family's, your daughter dying and your wife passing away? And he didn't want to live through that anymore. And that came from him talking to me, where I didn't have to ask him for that. He opened up and he says, that's why I don't really talk to people, because I just want to get done with that and keep going, And he quit music for like 7 years because of all that, But when he came back pretty hard, And so I'm really grateful for him for that, and everyone that, I paint for, But as far as paint jobs go or graphics go, we used to, I used to just wrap a drum because we didn't have that very many, I'm going to say finishes, but as John and John with his ideas, I guess with Sean from the shower, if you guys saw that yesterday, John gets ideas taking a shower. My scary stories from John is lunchtime. He comes back from lunchtime, hey, I have this great idea. And usually, because we know each other and work with each other so closely, if his idea started at lunch on Monday, by the following Tuesday, Wednesday, I already had done designing where all the lugs go, designing the artwork, what his mind was thinking and all that. And we go back and forth, and so we can finish an icon. It would take us maybe a week and a half and already ready to play. And so with the 45th, with the 25th, just those kinds of things, it would happen really, really quick. But the 25th is what really knocked me on my behind, because it was the first time we did inlays. But the way I helped with the inlay, besides staining and stuff like that, since I came from the body shop side, I used a seam sealer to seal up the center of the wood inlay that we did, and so that cut down. After about 30 kits, it was just faster. Oh, we can get these kits out faster now, and always thinking on how to do things. But yeah, so when I do a graphics kit, there's a sample here. But this one here, if you look at, we'll talk about the 50th for a little bit. This was a design that from John and Crystalline, who's here. Thank you for all her help, because she helps me a lot in designs and stuff like that. Yeah. Great hand to Crystalline. Yeah. So what my part is when we do the design, is to place everything, where everything's placed. And if you look at these little holes, these little dots, those little dots are where the lugs go. And so I put those in there when I start designing the whole kit. All of these, or that one or this one, all of the lug holes were already there, because that's where I designed to put them in there. And so when we get the veneers back and we make a drum, if those holes ain't right, then I guess I got to say I would be in a world of hurt, And so, but through doing it, and because of John, that his veneer ideas and all the internals, my drums weren't maple anymore. It was they had, and I'm not the guy that's going to talk about what veneers and to the left, and that's not me. I don't know much about that, and I should, but I don't. But my whole thing is the circumference of how, when drums come together, how wide they are and what's the circumference. So everything's changed because all our plies have changed. It's not just maple anymore, and so the configurations are thicker. So what I ended up doing was, now that I get every kit that I get that it has a graphic in it, and it doesn't matter if it's skulls or tribals or whether it's rally stripes or whatever the configuration, whatever the customer likes, is I always have the kits pre-drilled. Everything's already done. So that's how I end up getting my perfect centers, how I end up getting everything is symmetrical, and everything all goes by because I measure how that, from this point to this point, the top to bottom, from here to here, all that matters to be able to center any of our graphics. That way our customer gets the most for their money. I don't want to cover anything because I have to deal with lugs, air holes, BDMs, spurs, and I don't want to paint. I don't want to paint anything 20 minutes on a skull or wherever, and then I'm going to put a big old lug in front of it. That's why everything's pre-drilled and everything's set perfect. So that way our customers get the best for their money, and make sure they get as much as artwork as they can. And if it's something that I need to figure out, I'll always end up having to eliminate the store, eliminate our sales, and I go straight to the customer. And so we talk about things. You know what? I have this issue here. And so we either come with something, both of us together, and then we end up doing it. But I always do, all I do is an outline of the person's artwork, and I have to place it where there's nothing there, or, and then I'll paint from the outside going in. So I know that they get as much artwork as they can, and that's how I do my graphics. Whether rally stripes as well, I got to make sure that all our rallies are in between, because we have tags, and if the rally's up here and the tag's down here, it not only makes DW look bad, I makes myself look bad, and I'm like I said, I'm my worst critic, and I can't let that go like that, So that's how I do my graphics. Everything's pre-drilled. Mr. Williams as well. He brought this one that we did for him, and that's the same way, because I got tags and I got spaces in the middle, and we worked on that together for a good long time until we were finally able to come up with, okay, this is what we're going to do. Sometimes the thing with snares, I'll tell you, with snares, you have two lugs. You have two lugs, and those two lugs only have a space of about a 50-cent piece. So you don't have that much room or that much space in between lugs. And so some artwork, I mean, when people produce their artwork, they send it to me on a screen that big, and you see all this beautiful detail, but then by the time I have to shrink it and make it fit into a 50-cent piece, you don't see anything on there, so that's when we have to call the customer and say, you know what, this is not going to work, and so that's the graphic part. But I also wanted to talk to you guys about wood, okay? And really for our dealers and for our customers, when I end up getting a paint job and the person wants, let's say we go with cherry. Cherry's a dark wood. Or mahogany. That's very brown. So customers, what they do is they Photoshop a color, and they Photoshop how it should be, and then they give me a bright, beautiful blue, and it goes with their royals, and they want me to paint that over mahogany, okay? And it gets upsetting, not to us, but because we have to throw the red flag up. So when we paint darker woods, blues, bright regal blue will turn a brown green. And there's nothing I can do because it's transparent. Those are transparent colors. And so different woods get along with colors, and some woods don't get along with colors. And so sometimes I get little cards from like Home Depot. You know, can you paint this icicle blue? And, you know, and it's a solid interior or exterior, but they want it transparent. We can't really do that, you know, because of the wood that they chose. And not only that, but the color they gave me. I want that color, but I want it transparent. Well, if you can find it transparent, I'll paint it for you. But they don't. They're all solid colors. So different woods have different effects. Okay, there's some woods that we can do and some woods that we can't do. We could do different colors, but some colors, especially the blues, the greens, are very hard to make work on darker colors. Sean yesterday was talking about color matches, that his old mahogany doesn't match the new mahogany. Well, if the color match that comes in is a light mahogany, and then Sean gives me a dark mahogany. Remember, when you paint, you could only go light to dark, but you can't go dark to light. It's like, what can I put on this to lighten it up? There's nothing I can do. So those are kind of situations, and those are issues when you think about, or when you want to get a drum set. Really think about the colors that you want to do, because sometimes these colors will not work unless they're solid colors, you know. But if you want burst or fades or transparent, understand, like some reds, I want red, yeah, but it'll be pink to begin with. You know what I'm saying? And no, I don't want to see any pink. I could either do a hard line, or you're going to have a little bit of pink. So I can contrast it by doing a little bit of yellow, so that I can keep the red. So these are things that we have to talk to our customers. The same as our sales. We need to know that stuff too. And what we said, I wanted to do a seminar with our sales to let them know about how woods work, and how colors work, and how candies work, and how transparents work, how stains work. But yeah, those are our little issues that it's part of the trade. You know what I'm saying? I know they told me I have only 10 minutes, but I still have like 12 different things I want to talk about. I had everything ready, and I only got to 1 and 2. I had 10. But anyway, yeah, our 50th is a beautiful kit. We painted a few of those to see which colors would be the best ones, and we did a traditional burnt toast burst on those, because we really wanted to show off the wood and show off a little bit of color as well, and show off the inlay. So yeah, I love that kit. I think it came out beautiful, and I'm really grateful and thankful that I get a chance to be a part of it, you know. And hopefully I can do a whole lot more. But I'm getting old. I'm going to be 60, and I want to retire at 62. So I'm not saying I'm going to. pretty sure John's not. I'm pretty sure if the Lord lets me live till 62, I'm pretty sure John is not going to let me retire. But yeah, I still want to paint, and I still want to do different things, you know, and keep going. I'm going to open it up to questions. You guys have any questions for me? All right, thanks for coming out. No questions? Have you ever painted any guitars? I have, but I don't know who I painted for. But I've done quite a bit, not a whole bunch, but I've had, I did a few guitars, which are really, you gotta know how to paint guitars. You gotta do it for a good long time, because buffing is dangerous, especially with guitars, because it has all their hooks and not only that, but the sharp edges, that it goes from one side to the side of the guitar, to the back of the guitar, easy to burn with. And my hat's off to all of the guitar painters, you know, and manufacturers, because that's, well, I'm going to say it, maybe if I painted guitars for 30 years, I wouldn't be saying that, you know, but I'm grateful that I got round cylinders, you know, that I don't have to worry about the edges, because the edges are going to get done. You know, yes, sir.
So I'm curious to know, you know, John spends a lot of time, you know, designing these shells and coming up with a perfect sound. And then you get these great drummers that come in and say, I want this beautiful finish. But they get the sound first from John. I want the 9-ply mahogany with crisscross pattern or whatever, and it sounds so beautiful. And then, but now I want you to paint it with solid colors and put a bunch of varnish on it. So how do you deal with the sound of, you know, a drummer coming in saying, I really love what John does, but now I really want you to do something that's going to change the sound completely?
It doesn't change it. It doesn't change it drastically, because we don't put that much. We start off with primer, and we put quite a bit of primer on there so that we can seal the wood. But we practically, if we're shooting 3 coats of primer on there, we're sanding off 2. And so that leaves it pretty thin, which is this one. This is primer. This is ready to paint. But if you look at it, I mean, you look at through the sides, there's not the little tiny sand through that gets cut off. There's not much on there. So the sound that we work on, that John works on, is very important, and most important, the sound, you know. And so our job is to not put that much material on. And we do put 3 coats of clear, and we sand it down to probably 1 coat of clear, and then we put another 2 coats of clear, and then we go color sanding, probably take that 1 off. So at the end, you end up with 1.5. But if I go any lower than that, then all the UV protection is gone. And the UV protection is gone really right off the top, because when you shoot clear, your gloss is 100%, okay? When you shoot clear, 100% gloss. Once you color sand it and you break that seal, even though you take off all the orange peel, any little imperfections, any little bit of dirt, then you lose gloss, even though we have a mirror finish, but that gloss is not 100%. It drops down to, and depending on your clear, because you can have a cheap clear that you end up with 76% gloss. Right now, ours is 96%, our clear. And so even though it's 96% of its natural gloss, it's not bulletproof. Once you color sand a car or color sand a drum, you take away all your UV coating, you know. And if you find people are on a tour and you're playing outside and you have to leave your drums outside, I mean, it's going to take a toll. You look at some of our customers, our stores, that display their drums in the front window. And that glass is just a big old, you know, just burning right through everything. And then within a year, you leave it out there, and one side is light baby blue, and this is dark blue, you know. And so we end up having to rewrap it because the UV protection on anything right now is not 100%. So it's not bulletproof, and that's something that we have to deal with, you know. So we have a guarantee of our, and we have a long guarantee or warranty, but it's difficult. It's difficult, and we're always, you know, thriving to get the best. That's one thing I did when I became their painter. When I became their painter, I became the supervisor because there was nobody else there. It was just me primering and painting, and I was supervising myself, you know. But the coatings that we were using weren't at that time very well, so I ended up changing everything, and I keep changing it every chance I get. If I can make it better, I'm going to do it, even if it costs us a little bit more money. It doesn't. To us, we just got to make the best product. And if it's changing clears, if it's changing paints, if it's changing, then that's what we're going to do to try to get the best finish out of it. But that's a good question. It's just like John was talking about how the finish ply, we would end up, he'd end up doing like that little butterfly cut so that it wouldn't mess with the sound. And the finish ply is way thicker than our finishes, you know, but it's still, they're great sounding drums because it's the edges and how the tuning is what, I don't know if you've ever seen his video where if you put a drum on a table and you hit that drum's note, it would vibrate off the table. So that's where our timbre matching comes in. So if you have to choke up to try to get your drum set that's not timbre matched, then in order to make it sound right, you choke your 8 sounds deeper than your 10, you know, and you have to choke up your 10 or vice versa. It's not hitting the sound. That's why every one of our drums, if you notice, they have a note in there. So you tune to that note because that's his note. And that was his note before any of the primer came in, you know, before the clear, before all that. And when we end up stamping the note inside, it's the same note. And I'm grateful that it doesn't change that much. Sometimes maybe a little bit, but we still get the same great sound out of it. Tune it to that note. Mr. Williams.
David Williamson, and I worked with you, Louie, and from the bottom of my heart,
sir.
I want to thank you for your incredible heart and soul that you put into our custom kits. When you work on a snare drum, as you point out, that's normally the shortest throw on a drum, and so you have a lot of limitations.
Right.
And if you'd grab that snare drum and just kind of pick it up and roll it around, so everybody understands, as you said, they're pre-drilled, they're pre-this, but if you'll notice that the lugs are there, the throw-offs are there, and yet he was able to put the Williamson crest within the framing there, which you're all welcome to see, and he also put our Knight's helmet on it, and they built us an 8-piece custom kit, Mappa burl, and ended up with all this extra burl in it, and Louie hand-painted every one of those drums. And I just thought everybody should get a good feel to see the placement of the art is not obstructed by any of the mounting hardware.
Right.
So not only do you get the tonality and a great drum, you get a phenomenal instrument. So thank you, Louie, very much.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. Anyone? There's my boss.
Hey, Louie.
Now I got to be a good guy.
Louie, thanks so much for coming out and sharing your story. You're
thank
truly
you.
an
I
artisan,
appreciate it.
and as drummers, we appreciate everything that you've done to make our kits look
Well,
amazing.
Thank you. I appreciate that from the heart. Without any of you, there is no 50. We wouldn't be here 50 years. You know, so it's thank you. Thank you for 50 years. You know.
So my question is around this very special 50th anniversary kit.
Yes, sir.
And how you went about selecting how much burst to put in there and how you shaped that color to be as magnificent as what we're seeing here in front of us.
You know, it's on this burst, we've done it. It was one of my first finishes that I got introduced to with one of my first endorsees, Mr. Jack Bruno. He's a burnt toast lover. And everything that I ever painted, almost everything that I painted for Mr. Bruno is burnt toast, natural or burnt toast. So with the burst, there is no lug holes. There is no, for some of the kits, we don't put the lugs or the holes until after it's already done and buffed, edged, and then we do the drilling. So as far as how do you know how low to go or how high to go, it's something that you've been practicing for 30 years. And believe it or not, it's gonna sound like, you know, oh, he thinks he's all that. But a lot of it is muscle memory. Is that when I shoot a burst, I'm always shooting a burst this way, and I know how my colors work. So my strong point, if you look at that 50th anniversary, you would never be able to tell. You'd never be able to tell that my yellow candy is all the way over here. But since I faded out, and what happens when I do my brown candy, when you shoot your brown candy, what that brown candy does, it sucks up the yellow coming up. And so when I shoot my red-black, we call it red-black. It's our in-house DW candy. It's a red-black candy, and I just kiss the edges on here. Well, that brings everything with it. Like it sucks up all the yellow, it sucks up the brown, and all I do is kiss a little bit, and the fade works out that way, or the burst works out that way. John particularly, Mr. Good, particularly likes the quick rich red, quick burnt toast, and he tells you, give me some quick, you know, and so they're a little shorter because he's worried about, you know, his centers. He's worried about the wood that you know, he went and took 3 months to find. You know, he doesn't want me to bury it. You know what I mean? So he's, this one here, we want it real quick. And so we do that. You know, we do a little quick. And me, myself, I like to do my normal burst because I know how to burst it to where I can still keep my centers that way. And you would think that, oh, look at this drum. It's kind of yellow in the middle compared to this one or compared to that one. But brown, when you shoot your primer, your true colors of that wood comes out, you know, because if you want to, you could even touch it with a little tung oil and it's going to turn, it's not going to be that bright anymore. And so we use a different primers. We started using different primers, more clear primers. As far as production, it's not good for me because it takes 4 days to really sit and marinate and dry. Where our regular production primer, I could primer in the morning and the next day, it's already rock hard that I could start sanding and get ready to paint. But all of our exotics take that primer, the more clear primer, so that we can have a clear wood to make sure that we get all of its beauty, its glory, you know, as much as we can. I could tell a little bit if I use it or if I didn't use it, but it's one of those things that puts you at ease better. You know, okay, we gotta keep this as clear as we can. Yeah, for as much as primer. Anyway, no, that's it.
Ladies and gentlemen, sorry, we can't take any more questions because we're going to set up the stage for the next session. I just want to say, Louie, thank you very much for sharing your very wonderful stories.
If you guys have questions, I'll hang out. I got a little sticker for all you guys too.
I'm sure. Oh, yes, we've got an autograph table just around the corner. So if you want to have a chat with Louie afterwards, that's probably going to be this place. I'm sure you agree. I mean, I just wanted to sit and listen to your stories the rest of the day, especially when you said there's stuff you haven't covered. But thank you again for coming out. After this, we've got Don Lombardi with Terry Bozio and Thomas Lang talking about his teaching. Tomorrow we've got another Meet the Makers where Don's, with his R&D team, will be talking about all the fantastic inventions as well. So lots for you to come along and enjoy. Thanks again for your time and thank you for the live stream. Thank you.